October 10th. I'd like to bring this meeting of the Woodstock Village Board of Trustees to order. The first item on agenda this evening. Actually, before we get to the first item on our agenda, just housekeeping, as I usually do in the beginning of most meetings. The first thing is, if you want the agenda, we have a QR code here. You are welcome to come grab it, scan it. You can also just go to the town website and go under agendas, and you can pass around if anybody wants it. So always good to look at the agenda. We have multiple things tonight. I find it helpful to know where we are. So that's the first item. The other item, and you are welcome to these as well. This is the Rosenberg's Rules of Order. This is something that the village trustees voted on a year and a half ago to use as our official parliamentary procedure. And we will be sticking with this. One of the notable things about this is that as we go through, and again, you're welcome to grab one, the public comment is in the beginning. We want to make sure that we're getting the public comment, and that's in the beginning. So everything that you say, make sure you get it all in. And then we'll go through and we do our discussions and questions and all those sorts of things. So make sure that you're paying attention to this. Again, we have multiple laminated copies up here so that you can follow along. So there, yeah. So with that, our first item on the agenda is a finance committee interview with Renee. Renee, are you on? Okay.
He's not.
Renee is not here. Oh. What's that?
Yeah.
They might not have their videos on. That's possible.
This is reclaim host. She's in. This is reclaim host. Yeah, she's not on. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll just move on. Thank you.
If you can find it, that'd be great.
Or Nikki can follow up with her, or if anybody here at Rotary sees her tomorrow. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing to review transmittal draft of proposed amendments to the village zoning regulations. Who's here? Stephen and Laura and Frank. Make sure you guys get yours. Got a one more? Yeah.
Yeah.
So for everybody with their cheat sheets, so we've just announced what we're talking about, and now the sponsor, which is these three folks, will introduce and talk about, give us an overview of what they're talking about, and then we will move on to technical questions from the board, so very specific things. Then we'll move on to public comment. So any questions you have as folks are talking, please write them down, and we will make sure that we get everybody's questions.
What are we discussing here?
Right now, we're discussing the village zoning regulations.
What?
Village zoning regulations.
Zoning.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Okay,
Yeah.
Stephen.
Good evening, trustees. As you well know, Stephen Bauer, Director of Planning and Zoning, with me tonight. Powell, who is in transition, newly appointed select board member, also our clerk, and with Frank Hornick, who is the chair. They can also speak. So, but chair of the Planning Commission. Also online with us is Benjamin Pauley, our I believe our newest appointed Planning Commission member. Before we get started, launch right into this, I did want to let everyone know over on that little table, there's a couple different things, just so you have a version of what we are looking at for the public. If you want it, it'll also be up on the screen. Just wanted to let everyone know.
And is that the same that we have in our packet, or is there anything additional there? That
So we'll have the presentation here as well. So I'm not sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure that trustees have everything. I think we have.
Yeah, we have the
we have the planning commission report.
Yeah.
And then we have the sort of the lines.
The language, and then we're adding some more of the context to it,
Okay, so,
so
but should we be
that's the-
grabbing anything from there?
if you want one.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we've got everything, so we don't interrupt.
Yep. And Nikki, if you haven't already, am I allowed to share?
You should be good.
Okay, thank you. So just so you know what you're looking at, the thinner packet is just the notice, it's just the legalese, the notice of hearing, the things that we have to put out. Then you have the general just summary. What we're putting in more detail, the general overview, you have a zoning village map.
Well, we don't have that one.
And also giant on the,
Oh, okay, oh, it's in here, sorry.
and then just a general, a summary of things that we have to do, the things that are optional, and then the things that are kind of in between. And then here's just a general summary of Act 47, which is the housing. We'll talk about what that actually means. And so maybe I should have taken a different route with that. But you have that all, public has that, and then just a copy of the presentation. So now that we're there, let's just go ahead and talk about what we're talking about and why we're here and how we got there. So like we said in the budget meeting earlier, as soon as I came on at the beginning of a fiscal year 2023, we saw it as a priority in establishing how do we help in the housing, how do we help create more attainable, affordable workforce, insert buzzword here, housing. How do we just build more housing in general? And we realize in conversations, and I say we as the planning commission, also through the EDC and the housing group and Two Rivers Adequacy Regional Planning Commission, and several studies that have been going on for the last several years that all said, look, part of the problem, not the only part of the problem, but part of it is the barriers that are presented through long time zoning, a lot of which was established regulations in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and haven't been touched a lot since. And so part of the process when I started, when Laura started, when Frank started was, well, how can we eliminate some of those barriers? And how do we do that in a way that engages the whole community? So we started by doing this, and part of what I'm scrolling through here is just the idea of we are separating this into three sections. You got section one, the need, kind of that general what we're talking about, why we're talking about it. And then a summary of what those changes are. And then the boring part that I love, which is just the language and the marking through, and the part that, puts you to sleep on, on a Sunday afternoon. But a little bit less about me and us, and a little bit more about how we partnered and how we come to these conclusions. So if you see on the board, we have a lot of community groups, both the EDC Housing Group, Community Trust, Thompson Center, Two Rivers, Twin Pines Housing Trust, all people that are trying to solve the same problem, but looking at it different ways. We wanted their input, and the state said, well, here's some more ideas. They put out in 2020, when everyone was trapped at home, they did a lot of investigation and put this Enabling Better Places, which is just a guide for Vermont towns, saying these are all the best practices of what you should be doing to try and eliminate these barriers, which was very helpful. And then this past legislative session, the Senate Committee on Economic Development, which we have, luckily, Allison Clarkson has blessed us with her presence at the Planning Commission hearing, as well as some of the other senators and folks involved in that testimony to help us understand what is Act 47, which was S100 in the legislative process and signed the governor, Act 47, which was some of the largest and most impactful changes to zoning in the history of zoning in Vermont. And so we wanted to get their input on why they did that and what we should be doing. So that's just a little background of who we talked to. A little bit more on just the critical lack of housing. I think everybody in the budget process who is saying they need more staff, and the biggest problem is they can't hire the staff at the wages that we are paying in the town that also allows them to live here. We see that as an issue. So that's part of the need. And also, that's not the only people it impacts. We have older residents that are impacted by a lack of housing. Again, those local workers, teachers, police officers, firefighters, planning and zoning assistants, just to name a few, as well as businesses, organizations. So you think that people that you're trying to hire because you just lost someone and you're looking for someone to cut hair. Well, do they have to drive from Springfield in order to do so? So this impacts everyone across our community. And so we're looking at ways to make this more affordable. And part of what that is, well, what truly is affordable? I mean, that is a moving target. But we look to the EDC Housing Working Group to help us kind of understand a little bit of what does that mean? They have some programs, and so we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but this is a little bit about, just trying to set levels for what type of development are we looking for when changing these zoning regulations. And so that speaks a little bit to that. And just a little bit about where, what the state is saying and how we're acting upon doing what they're requesting. So. And then this is about our approach. I don't know, Laura, you want
Yeah.
to talk about that approach of how we.
So when we first started tackling this problem, and this is not something that's obviously going to be solved by just the planning commission, we thought about how we wanted to move through it. And one of the biggest things we decided we wanted to take this approach of being proactive. We know the state especially has been looking at this issue for many years, how to solve it. And so when we started talking about it in the fall of last year, we said, how can we be proactive? How can we use also the town plan to guide our actions? That is a foundation for how things have worked in the community in our past, and also what we prioritize as a community. Like Stephen said, following best practices, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, which put out Enabling Better Places, which is the guide. They basically wrote this guide that says, like, what are the easy wins you can do in your community? What are the small steps you can take that have outsized impact? And also be a part of an incremental approach. We are not solving this overnight by any means. I don't think anybody is. If they are, I would pay them all the money in the world. But I think an incremental approach is also what we need as a community. Making changes that retain community character, you'll see, and we might speak about tonight, we I've had a lot of discussions about what community character is and what is the sense of place that Woodstock has that makes it so special, and how do we hold that in the balance, while also recognizing that this is a big problem and it takes many hands to solve it from many different perspectives and many angles, and we are just one. So that's what we're going to talk about.
So getting into more specifics of what we identified, and we brought the group from the EDC Housing Working Group in to kind of help us, because they had a lot of information, a lot of surveys to kind of help us determine where should we be focusing. We've got all these problems, we know the problems, but where should we focus first? Where are those things that are the low-hanging fruit? And so we had 5 areas of focus: parking, density, timeliness, sewer and water, general growth planning. Sounds like all those things that we bring up every time we have any sort of conversation about how to solve this. So while all 5 of these are very important to that process, we wanted to first start with the focus. And now some of the water conversations have started. And so we have a lot of those things in the balance that there's a lot of conversations going on, but we don't have a direct solution for some of the other 2. So right now we focus on these 3, and what we're coming before you tonight is to say, we haven't solved it, but here's some things that are going to help. And that would be parking, density, and timeliness. So let's go ahead and jump into that second section where we're actually talking about a summary of the changes that we're doing. Does anyone have any questions to this point? So you don't know what the town looks like. That's what the town looks like on a zoning map. This is what we're talking about. If you don't know what the village looks like in a zoning map, that's what the village looks like on a zoning. Under Act 47, which I will explain in a minute, part of the provision that matters is whether or not we have the areas have access to sewer and water. And so that's what the map, if you're looking at on the screen right now, is kind of that overlay of the majority of the village has some sort of access. That doesn't mean they're currently connected to water or sewer, but they have some sort of without a huge undertaking could actually have access to sewer and water. So I'm going to pause this real quick here, and I keep referencing something called Act 47. I think most of you have heard of that, but I'll bring a little bit more into what that actually means. Touched on it. Act 47 is what S100 became once it was passed. And there's a lot of things that covers. We will not talk about because it's either not our purview or it just doesn't have to do with zoning regulations that help in the housing realm, but that's just not what we're talking. From Act 250 to different sorts of funding and grants, and that's just not what we're talking about tonight. So what our main focus is going to be on is this summary of what do we have to do, what is the best practice that we're suggesting in the regulations, and then what we're prohibited from doing. What the legislature has said, look, if you're doing this now, you have to stop. Where we have a few of those that we'll talk about. And then there's this area that says in just zoning districts served by sewer and water, you can do these things and you have to stop doing these things. So if you look up at the screen, we'll kind of start with a few examples before we dive in. So on things that municipalities now must do, and luckily we have already done, is that everywhere we allow single family households, single household buildings, you have to allow duplexes. That one's pretty easy because we've already done that. We're actually pretty progressive as Woodstock Village in allowing that to happen. So that was an easy change. The next part of, let's skip over to the upper right where it says municipalities are now prohibited from doing these things. And that's subjecting accessory dwelling units, you know them better as ADUs, for more prohibitive standards. So you can't have an ADU have higher standards than a single household building. That's part of, and I mean that by setbacks. So you cannot require more prohibitive standards for duplex than single household dwellings. So that would be traditionally where if you have let's make it easy. You have a 10,000 acre and you have to have 10,000 acre per dwelling. You can now have 2 dwellings in that 10,000 acres if you're building a duplex. You can't prohibit that in your zone. Another thing is municipalities cannot require more prohibitive standards to convert an existing detached, classic example, a garage or a shed that you go, if we put some insulation in there and some heating, maybe we could make that into an apartment. So there's certain things now that it says you can't require, you can still have a permit, but you can't require a different set of regulations for that ADU than you can a single household dwelling. And then there's this gray area in the middle that says municipalities may give the administrative officer authority to approve minor subdivisions. We'll get back to a little bit more of what that means. I just want to introduce us to this to this kind of concept is that there's going to be some things that the legislature said you have to do, some things that you have to stop doing, and some things that are best practice. So in these zoning districts served by sewer and water that we saw the map earlier, that's pretty much everywhere in the village. Municipalities are required to allow multi-unit dwellings with up to 4 units be permitted, not conditional use. So we'll talk about that once we get back to the language in a second. So municipalities must establish building and lot standards to allow 5 or more dwelling units per acre. So that's just the idea of density. Density just being by definition, how many dwelling units per land. And so this says, if you have access to sewer and water, then you can't have a density higher than 8,712 feet. That's a fifth of an acre. And then municipalities must permit a dwelling unit density bonus of 40% and a bonus of 1 habitable floor above height maximum for affordable developments. So if you fall under the HUD definition, which is in that language, then you qualify for a density bonus. That means whatever that density is, you can add 40% more and an extra floor. So, and then in the zoning, things that you cannot do is municipalities can no longer require more than 1 parking space per dwelling unit. And that goes up to 1.5 spaces for multi-dwelling units if existing parking is not sufficient. And municipalities now cannot require more prohibitive dimensional requirements for multi-unit dwellings than those required for single household dwellings. What that means is, if going back to the easy example, if you have 5,000 per dwelling unit, you need 5,000 per one, and then the 2, which we already established. So you need 5,000 per square feet just for the duplex. And then if you add a 3, you can't go, well, for a third one, now you need 10,000 beyond that. So you can only go in increments of 1 at a time. So that's just a little bit of the easiest way to break down Act 47. And like I said, it's 4 pages of just the legislative council's summary of it, and this is essentially the areas that we're talking about. So it's not a huge part of the act; it's just the part that we're dealing with.
And it
Yeah.
already went into effect. This law was
Yeah.
signed into law July 1st.
So everything but that parking requirement, whether or not it's adopted in our zoning, is already law. So when we're talking about the 5 units per acre, if a developer comes into my office and says, zoning administrator, I would like to do a development that is in the sewer and water, and it's going to be 5 or more units, or it's going to be 5 units per acre. Even though currently our regulations say, well, you have to have a 20,000 feet residential low density, we would be precluded by that state law. So going back to the other one. No questions yet?
Have a list going.
Okay.
I've already asked you a question.
You made a comment a few minutes ago about, you said 10,000 acres. Or,
Or 10,000 square feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
can you say acres?
Yeah.
Yeah.
An example.
Yeah.
She used it as an example.
But did you really mean 10 acres?
10,000?
I think
It doesn't
Yeah.
make a lot of.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. So everything this has just been a general example. So now we're going to get into more of the summary of what we're actually talking about. And so I don't think that it is necessary to kind of stop and go through each single one of these summaries. You guys have seen them, but stop me at any point. So right now we have all of these sections, which somewhat, the title is somewhat irrelevant now with a residential 3 acre. And so, but we have to go through the comprehensive town plan process and go through that in the planning commission and come before you, and we'll do a joint hearing. And we're gonna push, that's gonna happen, but we're gonna push that a little bit. We might no longer call this residential 3 acre because it no longer makes sense as that.
And can I just, as you're about to do this, so that everybody's familiar and we're all working from the same information, when you're talking about going from requiring administrative review to conditional use review or wherever that is, can you say, what is administrative review? What does that involve? What does conditional use review involve? So
Yeah.
like, what are those two processes?
Yeah. That's a great question. So administrative review means the zoning administrator or the administrative officer, which is me. I'm appointed jointly by this board and the select board to serve as the administrative officer. So when I do a review, the hearing process, there's no hearing process. So I come in and review, does this match all of the criteria? Does it comply with the regulations? And so go through the entire review, just like the board would, except it's just one individual person, which is the administrative officer. And so that administrative officer determines in an administrative approval whether or not it complies with the regulations, whether or not they need more information to determine whether or not it complies with the regulations. So you send in all the information just directly to our office. The administrative officer decides, yes, it does. It gets a permit, or no, it does not. It's denied. For a conditional use approval, what that means is all that information still comes into my office, but there will be some sort of reason in the regulations that says, perfect example would be it's on a steep slope, fragile soils. So if you have, somewhere that you're trying to build an accessory dwelling unit is on a steep slope and it has 6 inches to bedrock, good luck finding an engineer that wants to do it. But also we have concerns in our regulations about the erosion that might cause. So that automatically requires a different type of review. And the general one is conditional use approval. That means it has to go in front of the Village Development Review Board. It gets warned 15 days to all the abutters. It's posted in the paper. It's posted around town saying that there is a public hearing that is coming forward. And this is the process that they will go through. Then after that, rather than the administrative approval, so after the permit is issued, the administrative approval has a statutory 15-day appeal period, and the conditional use approval has a 30-day statutory period. If you appeal a decision of the administrative officer, it goes to the Village Development Review Board. It becomes a hearing, and that whole process starts. If you appeal from a Village Development Review Board, it goes directly to the environmental court.
So there's due process in all of it in both ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just the timeline for an average administrative approval process, assuming you have all your materials at the time of application, you've paid your fee. That average is usually between 7 and 14 business days. Whereas a typical village development review approval, from the time that you apply, you have everything, and the time that you get your permit, you can actually shovel in the ground, sort of start digging, building a house, is usually around 90 days.
So a lot of the changes you're suggesting is to make it.
Yeah, to speed that process.
Speed the whole
More
process.
time.
Yeah, and a little bit behind that is just simply the difference that we've seen in fluctuation in building costs. Not only that, but just finding a contractor that can do it. So the two sessions ago, the legislature decided, look, we have to have at least 2 years from the time people get permits before we start having them lapse. Before that time, we only gave people 12 months. From the time you got a permit to the time we said your permit's no good because you haven't done it in time. So we've now extended that to 24 months. And I think this next session we'll probably already be talking about, is that long enough? Just because of the demand and also the pricing. And so the difference between 30 days and 90 days what we've heard is the opinion of contractors that can actually make a large difference. So that is part of the reasoning for why we've done that. Hopefully that answered all those.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So talking about just general, I mean, residential, we kind of split these into two, like lower density, residential 3 acre, residential 1 acre, residential low density within the village. So if you look at just kind of an overall, there's an overall reoccurring theme, but we'll start with residential 3 acre because that might be easiest. So if you look at single household, 2 household, and what we determine call small unit household dwellings, 3 or 4 units, what is currently a conditional use approval, all of those are now administrative, as you saw, because Act 47 requires it. It says up to 4 units, that you could still require a permit, but you have to permit it. And then once we hit the 5 units, so right now we have a multi-unit under our current regulations is anything 3 or over. So 3 and just to infinity requires a conditional use process. So once we hit 5 and over, we keep that the same way. So it goes through a conditional use process. That's a large enough development that it should have we believe that it should have a little bit more of those traditional steps. Accessory dwelling units, we currently call them detached apartments in the village. Those have to go through a conditional use process currently. Our proposal is that should be an administrative process, as well as allowing accessory dwelling units to 2 household dwellings. So if you have, right now, it only allows for a single house. It's not permitted. What we're proposing is that if you have a duplex and you have the room to do so, you could convert a shed to an accessory dwelling. Or you could build one. Again, you still have to have the density calculation that is well. Is currently not there that we've added. When it comes to the density, the minimum lot frontage, you can see the things that are highlighted bright yellow that are covered by the screen currently. So, Nikki, are you able to minimize that for this presentation? Or maybe?
I've really done it now, you guys.
Right. The view.
Here.
There it is. Nikki's doing it.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. There, now the crowd can also see it. So the things in yellow, we go from 3 acres per 1 or 2 household dwelling to 8,000 square feet per 1, 2, 3, and small unit. So pretty much up to 4 units, it's 8,000 per unit. Minimum lot frontage, we've shrunk that from 100 on the major roads, 75 from the town roads. We just have an overall 50. So center line 50, minimum and side setbacks have not changed, but the maximum building height has gone up to 40. So I personally don't think that it's necessary to roll through all of these because it's kind of the similar theme.
Yeah.
For residential 1, it pretty much matches. I think the minimum rear setback has gone down a little bit further. Maximum height still 40. Residential low density as well. We keep it to 8,000. But as you add additional units, that's where the difference between R3, R1, and residential low density changes a little bit, as well as the rear setbacks and the side setbacks. So where we see a little bit more impact is when we get into residential medium density. So if you need to refer back to the map, we can do that just to know where we're talking about. But oh, don't worry about it right now. I mean, we have it printed out. So same sort of thing, up to 4 units, administrative, get to 5, conditional use, accessory dwellings, same sort of outlook. If you look at the proposed, our residential medium density is already allows for quite a bit of density. It just makes that a little bit smaller, pushes the center line back a little bit more, forward, And residential high density, just does the same. And then as we get into these kind of, small little districts like residential office, it kind of goes on that same theme. So we'll stop here at central commercial, just to bring your attention to single household dwellings. We actually propose to prohibit those in the central commercial district. So we're talking about, right at the crossroads of Elm and of 12 and Route 4. So in our most dense commercial area, that's where we want the apartments. I mean, unless you tear down one of those buildings and build a single family home. We want to actually say, no, you need to at least have a duplex, or you need to come in here, and not just turn one of those buildings into a single household dwelling, for example.
So the big house that's being built on Central, the gigantic one, doesn't apply it wouldn't apply here.
Correct. One, that this
Because
isn't law yet. And two, that house in particular had been grandfathered in from like 1912 or whatever,
Right.
whenever it was originally built.
Yeah.
So that has been residential for a long period of time. So, oh yeah, you're correct. So any questions?
What did you,
There.
what part did you say? Where's the,
Central commercial.
Central
Central
Okay,
commercial.
okay. Oh,
So
yeah,
if you look at the
that.
table
Okay,
up on the
yes.
screen, you'll
Yeah.
see that on the left-hand side, it's a single household dwelling that's currently in administrative approval, and you'll see the X, say it's actually a non-permanent use.
no, I was just looking for it on the map.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So look at the
That's helpful.
middle.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. Here. Moving in, commercial light industrial, so what we're talking about here is the east end, for the most part. So we still allow a lot of those things, but this is our classic, mixed use area. So, and again, the one that still has questions about how much water, how much sewer capacity, how much could we have? We still have a lot more questions to ask, but this is another area where we just say, well, if you were to have multiple multi-household dwellings, this is the most likely first place that a developer would look. Now that said, there's not currently one calling, but we hope that this will actually help that process. Light commercial is similar to the residential office. That's kind of that east end area. Okay. So the only thing left would be the specific transmittal draft. So there was one error that was brought to my attention in section 109 of the definitions as proposed. Under accessory dwelling unit, we pretty much just use the direct state, the state's definition. And the thing that I did not have on there was the residential building on an owner occupied lot. That was something the planning commission had talked about and put in there. It was actually my error for not having it on this presentation. So we fixed that. Affordable housing. So we had previously had an affordable housing definition, took that out and just put in essentially what the state has for affordable housing.
What is it? I'm sorry, I can't.
So yeah, so
I was looking for-
there's two, there's owner occupied, and then so if you own a home, then it's a certain thing, and then rental housing would be, I think it's 80% of the rental housing for which the total annual cost of renting, including rent utilities, does not exceed 30% of the gross annual income of the household. And then affordable housing development is defined as a housing development which is 33% of the units or a minimum of 5, whichever is greater. So that comes into play for whether or not you get the access to density bonus, that we'll talk about in a second, as well as the extra floor.
Do you, just while we're talking about it?
Yep.
You happen to know what that would be for Windsor County? Like what, if you're looking at the salary?
No, not off the top of my head. Yeah. And so we wrote it, I think they write it this way and we've adopted that because it is always changing.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And over the last 5 years, it's gone up. It's gone down. So
Stephen,
Yes.
is it appropriate for me to ask for a point of privilege? It says here, at any time in the meeting.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, number one, I didn't see anything about sign up when I came in, so I didn't sign up. Does that
There is
have
no
any
sign.
effect on when my article will be,
Yours will be during public,
pardon me,
yours will be during citizen comments, which is after this.
I'll be next?
Citizen comments are,
Oh, there's no time limit on any of these things. We could be here till 10 o'clock at night.
we could. We hope not to be. We're gonna do our best not to.
All right.
I would like to go home. Okay, go ahead. Thank you for using the correct motion though.
So that's what an affordable housing development is. Otherwise, most of these are just kind of legalese of changing to a household, rather than a single family dwelling, a single. So, okay, using residential 3 acre, again, I'll highlight some of what the things are that we're doing. One of the questions that Jeffrey has brought up is, when you see here on uses requiring an administrative approval, you see that administrative permit is crossed out, and I just want to simply clarify what that means. You still need a permit. Anything that says the regulations that you need a zoning permit, you need a zoning permit. The administrative approval or conditional use approval is just saying what review process you have to go through. So the administrative officer is the only person in a town that actually issues a zoning permit. So that can get confused with an administrative permit or a conditional use permit. It's actually the review and approval process. So when you see uses requiring a conditional use permit marked out, what that means is it still goes in front of the Village Development Review Board and is a conditional use approval. So I can't issue a zoning permit if something requires conditional use approval by a board. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, yeah. we wanna
Yep, okay.
Straighten that out for me before.
And so really all the rest of this language is just codifying what we saw in the charts before. So I think at this time, I'll kind of just stop talking and see what questions you have specifically in the language.
Okay, so trustees, the first thing is if we have any technical questions. So if you're asking, so that would be definitions of things, what is affordable housing? Like that was a technical question that I should have held clearly. But are there any other technical questions about definition, verbiage, those sorts of things?
So technical question, affordable housing, 30% of the gross monthly income. That's what they have as a definition.
Yeah, that's the
Is that even realistic? And probably, I mean, the state made this decision, right? But that's
yeah, I think that's a debate that is ongoing.
ridiculous number.
Yeah.
And today, I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
30 years ago it was 28%.
And so already even before, so after the planning commission hearing, we immediately had the next planning commission hearing was a question about, well, are we attracting enough development through just affordable housing? How realistic is that actual number, both for the developer that is making an investment, as well as the people that might live there? We probably need to look at some sort of somewhere between the large gap between affordable housing and market rate housing. And so trying to figure out a little bit more of that. So that's the next step that we'll work on as well. Because I agree with you, and I think the planning commission generally does as well, that that's too big of a gap for comfort. We gotta figure out a way to close that if we're really helping.
And the answer is median income in Windsor is $61,000. So whatever, run your numbers. I just needed to like have a sense of what that meant.
Um,
Okay. Are there any other technical questions?
I have a.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, just a very stupid thing.
Oh, no. So this is technical questions from the trustees, and then we're moving on to the citizen comments, but thank you. So if there's no more technical questions, I'd like to open it up to citizens' comments. And so I know we've got lots of people with comments, which is fantastic. Because we've got a lot going on, I'd like to try to keep everybody's comments to 5 minutes total. As you all are 3 minutes total, every time I go to tech. And as you all are talking, if there are questions in it, I'm going to be writing down questions so that when we come back and talk to them more, everybody's questions can get answered. Again, this is a first hearing. There's no guarantee we're going to vote tonight. This is, for a lot of us, this is the first time we've seen it. And so we want to make sure we have discussions. Any questions at the end of this where we're like, my goodness, we need more information before we make a decision, then we will ask them to get answers for us and come back. So don't feel like rushed. So just give us your 3 minutes of comments. Again, I'll write down questions, and then when we get into, we will, after that, vote to have debate or vote to have a discussion. And when we do that, then we will bring them back up here. We'll discuss and ask them further questions. So with that, let's go back and forth between Zoom and the room. So Roger, your camera's already up, so I'm gonna clock you for 3 minutes. Come up here and please get in front of the microphone so that we've got you.
Sure, I have one very stupid technical question.
I love stupid
Which
questions.
is, how many acres, how many square feet are there in an acre?
Oh,
I'm sorry, 20,000?
44,000.
44,000.
there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to make any comments while you're up here?
Yes.
Okay, have a seat. Please.
Okay. Well, I just want to really say, first of all, this
And
is
your name?
Roger Logan, Woodstock Village.
What's your last name?
Logan,
Oh, Roger Logan?
that's me.
Hi, Ron.
Hi. This is very impressive work. A lot has gone into this and I really appreciate it. Can somebody explain the differences in what the town needs to approve and the village needs to approve?
This is just village, so this is just.
So this is
village.
just the village. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was quick. Be like Roger.
There's 3 questions online.
Okay, so then we'll go to someone online. So I see Kareem with his hand up. Go ahead, Kareem. And
Yes,
let
good
us know who
evening.
you are for those of us who
Yes.
don't know.
Yes, hi there. My name is Kareem Houri, and I'm a village resident as well. I want to reiterate thanks for this very detailed presentation. It's been very helpful. I believe at the beginning of the presentation there was a mention that an analysis was done, and I'm not sure what the assumptions went into it, but the number was floated over a period of time of the need for additional 500 units. Is that correct? Do I recall that number correctly? Okay. I'm just asking whether, if we get to hit that number over time, will our infrastructure be able to support that for the village, i.e. sewer capacity, water capacity, and school capacity? And then, so that is my question. We may not have the answer today. And then I'd like to make a comment also, is that with more houses that would get into the village, which is a little bit the silver lining, it would reduce the sort of impact, the current impact of our property taxes individually today if we have more houses in the future, because we all know property taxes are going to keep increasing.
Thank you. And again, I'm collecting questions, so we'll ask them when they come back.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, is there another person in the room that would like that has a citizen comment? John, come on up and tell us who you are, for those who don't know you.
Hi, John Spector, a village resident. I just want to amplify what Kareem said. The Finance Committee is building a long-term financial model for the town, including the village. And we've looked at all of we're looking at, it's not done, looking at all the factors that can help to mitigate the increase in our taxes. We know that our taxes are going to go up because we are at a time when there's huge capital needs over the next decade. There's only one factor that makes a difference, where you can see the difference in the line on the graph. about how high our taxes go up. And that's what Kareem said. It's building more houses, period, full stop. It's affordable houses that are for workforce housing or affordable housing, whatever we want to talk about it, not only help keep our taxes low because they spread the tax burden among more houses. Remember, houses pay taxes, not that we live in them, but we tax houses in Woodstock. And so the affordable housing or workforce housing is fantastic because it not only helps to spread the tax burden, but it also helps our local businesses and it creates the kind of community that many people want. So that's the first thing we should be doing. And the approach that the Planning Commission is putting forward is fantastic. But all houses help. And I will point out, just to use the example you raised, Jeff, the house at 63 Central is going to contribute to tax relief, the equivalent of 20 units of affordable housing, order of magnitude. It should not be either or. The only thing I just encourage the group to think about, not I'm opposed to it, but just think about the effect of banning a very expensive single family home in certain places. We need as much housing as we can get. I'm all for the proposals that they've put forward, but from a tax perspective, any housing, second homes, any housing is going to help spread the tax burden, and we just need to be thinking about that now and in the future.
Thank you.
We will line.
Okay. Jeff, we'll take you next.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Martin, Woodstock Village resident and also the chair of Sustainable Woodstock. So thank you all for considering these amendments. Sustainable Woodstock provided a letter of support for these amendments to Stephen. So hopefully he can pass that along, but I'll just summarize quickly here. Our mission at Sustainable Woodstock is to inspire, educate, and empower everyone to live environmentally, economically, and socially responsible lives. We think that these amendments will help residents live more environmentally as well as more socially responsible lives. In terms of the environmental impact, by encouraging or allowing for denser housing, this will give more people the opportunity to live in a walkable community and decrease our dependence on cars. And we know that in Vermont, over a third of our greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation. So, Woodstock Village is pretty uniquely walkable. So giving more people the ability to get to work and school and biking will help reduce our emissions. And then secondly, in terms of social responsibility, the village passed a Declaration of Inclusion in 2021, and we feel that these changes will help the town take a meaningful step towards that Declaration of Inclusion. Our current zoning policies are restrictive in terms of housing supply, inflating housing values, and that's excluding many families that simply just can't afford to live here. So this proposal will help reduce that burden. So thanks for the opportunity to comment and for your consideration.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Is there someone else in the room that has a comment? Okay. Wendy, do you want to come on up? And for those of us who don't know you, please make sure you get your name.
Hi, I'm Wendy Niranen. I'm also a village resident. I really appreciate the opportunity in this format to share some thoughts. For specific questions for the team, the zoning team. My opening one is, can we achieve the same state goals with fewer changes in our zoning? And specifically, those changes I'm speaking of are the lot setback determinations driven by the state law, and are all of the conditional use changing to an administrative restricted by law. I know I understand the first three in the chart up to 4, but then there's 2 in the chart after the 5 that might be better served with conditional use. I'm a big fan of our process. As long as we've had it, I think it brings more people, our current process brings more eyes in, brings more people in on situations that impact neighborhoods, impact neighbors, impact traffic, impact anything. I think that our process, while it adds a little bit of time, it's thoughtful. And I think our process with involving the boards and the conditional use has curated essentially what we have now for 50 years. Now, this is something that everyone's responding to in a positive way. What we have now, the aesthetics of what we have now, the open space and the intervals and the rhythms that change. And I think it's because of thoughtful process, including historic design. And I understand that will continue. The design review, historic design review, that question I had was addressed. So zooming back, the lot sizes that are changing and distance setbacks from, not lot sizes, the setback footage and the distance from the center lines that are proposed changes and the height change, all of those feet changes in the far right column in yellow. My question is, are those state mandated? Are those necessary to the 8,000 square? And if they, and if they're not, I'd like to propose a review of those. Could those be reviewed as to why those are being proposed?
Okay.
Um,
Got 20 seconds. Do you have anything?
20 seconds. Really quickly, can someone take, let's say you have an acre, can you sell off 8,000 square feet and have someone else build a house? I guess it's kind of a subdivision. Is that a fallout reality of this new law? Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, let's see. Online looks Kevin Geiger.
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks. I'll defer to Stephen on the technical answers on her question, on Wendy's questions there. But from our point of view, we have worked with the town and several other towns on doing this exact same thing that you folks are doing, which is wonderful, on the goal to get more housing into places. And as Stephen said, zoning doesn't build housing, but it gets out of the way of housing. And yes, Woodstock is a great place to live. I lived there when I first moved down. I rented a 2-bedroom, half a duplex. My staff have no chance of renting that same unit, now at the prices that are out there today, for my newer staff. And that is a problem. So that's part of the issue. We love Woodstock, and there's lots of things and people who can't come to our town for a variety of reasons right now. So I hope you keep that in mind. A lot of these changes have become effective July 1, and so some of them are in play now. It's nice to have them in your zoning regulations so you remember them, but some are just automatically there. And so you may be dealing with those as you get applications, regardless of what you're doing tonight. But I work in this effort regionally. This is a very good step, and I urge you to keep going.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there anybody else in the room? Yeah, come on up and give us your name, and if you're in the village, please. Make sure you get close to a microphone.
We go.
Yeah.
Roger Amato, Woodstock Village,
I'm sorry, what was the last name?
AMATO Amato.
Okay.
So a couple of years ago, we actually bought Hans Meyer's place in Woodstock. Hans was a senior resident, and there was a cottage in the back of the property that was rented for 15 years. We ended up in a lawsuit over that because the town was all for it, ADUs, but excuse me, what?
Oh, we have,
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
we have,
thank you. So,
grab a drink.
long and short of it is, we ended up in a lawsuit because the language in this document was so screwed up. And so I very much applaud this effort to clean up language, get it right with the state, and make it workable for folks in this community. You have people having to move out because sloppy language.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
awesome.
Okay,
We have one more in the room.
okay. Is there anybody else on Zoom that I'm missing?
No.
Nope, okay. You got someone else in the room here?
Right here.
Oh, yeah, come on up. And give us your name and if you're in the village.
Chief Elkin in the village, and I got here late, so if this has been addressed, forgive me.
That's okay.
With all the talk about building new housing, affordable housing, given the fact there are so many second homeowners here, how can you be assured that when you build the housing, they'll go to workers and as opposed to people using it as, ski chalets or as a second home? That's it.
Okay, thank you. That was easy. Anybody else on Zoom that I'm missing? Okay, anybody else in the room? Yes, come on up.
Bill McDonald, I live here in the village. I didn't come here to discuss this issue today, but as long as I'm here, two things. Number one, is there room in the village for any more building, period? Any compassionate society wants to take care of everyone and see that they have a roof over their head. My wife does some volunteer work and she tells me about people living under the highway bridges down the White River, and it's just hard to believe. But so the second thing, number one, is do we have room here in the village? Secondly, don't you think if we're gonna have housing for low-income people, there should be public transportation? We don't have that here. So that's a negative. Public transportation and space.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments on Zoom? Any other questions or comments? What's that? You had 20 seconds left, so.
Oh, did?
Yes, so come on up. Well, I'll give you 20 seconds. One more question.
My other question is differentiation. I'm confused by the differentiation between ADUs and one household dwellings in terms of permitting process and definition. There used to be the phrase and size change, the subordinate and the ratio scale, that I don't know if that still applies and if it's.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay.
See, and I
so-
think Linda Smitty has a comment.
Oh,
She's
okay,
just having a hard time raising her hand.
okay. Okay, Linda, go ahead. So we know your name and let us know if you're in the village.
Okay, thank you very much. I have, first of all, a question. There has been, in these ongoing discussions that have been going on in one form or another for several years, there has been constant reference to the underlying data showing not only the fact of need of higher density housing, but also the range of need. And where can one find that data?
I will write that down and I'll make sure that our folks give you that answer.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. And my other question has to do with the, excuse me, pardon me, has to do with Stafford Commons, and that was built as affordable housing. And when it was originally presented, it was presented as there would be a mix of types of affordable housing in Stafford Commons. And what does the data show about the actual outcome of what is the economic mix? Was it successful? Did it meet its original projections?
So we'll figure out somebody to get back to you on that. Today we're just talking about the village and village zoning things. So I'm not familiar with that, but we can figure
Oh,
out.
That's
Okay,
right.
it's in the town, so
Yeah.
that might be a select board question, or Twin Pines Housing Group runs it. I'm sure they could help you out with that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, any other comments that I'm missing? Nikki, is there anybody else online that I'm missing?
Not that I see.
Okay, anybody else going once, going twice? Okay. So let's move on. What's that? Okay, well, so we're gonna make a motion to move into debate for this. So I make a motion to move into debate to discuss this issue. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are now in our debate and discussion time. So let's get these questions answered first. So can you all come up and we'll go through these, and then we'll get into all the questions and discussions from our trustees.
I've got it. You can, okay. No. Can you see? But you don't.
Linda, keep yourself on mute,
No.
please.
I'm fine.
Linda, can you put yourself on mute? Okay, got it. Thank you. So the first question that we had from Kareem was, can our current infrastructure support additional homes?
You said houses.
Houses, additional
Units. would
units,
be probably
yes,
right.
yes.
So, I'll reiterate the question. Can our current infrastructure support 500 units, which is what we're calling for?
Yes.
The answer is we don't know for sure yet.
Okay.
And that is part of the original where I started this is a holistic thing.
Okay.
If we could just snap our fingers and put 500 new units, would that make our sewer and water fail? The answer might be it might. So that's why we also have to, at the same time that we're creating this, because this will, I mean, under what we're proposing now, we estimate that this is going to be, at best case scenario, 10 years before we actually see 500 new units. Because right now this is an incremental change. The way we're going to get 500 overnight, which isn't a reality, the way that you would get 500, new units in a shorter period of time would have the infrastructure already in place.
Yeah.
So what these help with in the village is more of the infill. There isn't a 500 unit solution that can be built in a week. And I don't think that we'd have the infrastructure to support that. So the answer is we don't know, but part of our investigation ongoing is how do we get to that point to be able to answer it that with the definitive yes we can. So therefore, let's bring in the developers to build a larger amount of
A quick
And-
question, is that, I'm out of turn if I ask a question?
Is it follow up to that particular?
I
question?
just want to know where the 500 figure came from to begin with. You could reiterate that.
Local
Yeah.
planning experts, where are they?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's several studies. That's 2018 Woodstock Housing Survey, I believe that the EC commissioned. We also have a previous survey to that Allison referenced in our last meeting that said it was 200 units back in 2012. And that data is also supported by the Keys to the Valley study, which was put forth by Two Rivers Ottaquiche, Vital Communities, and several others. You'll also see at the state level that data is supported.
That
when
was,
you-
that was the main thing from the state level.
and that study that we're referencing for 500 units happened in 2018 before the pandemic. So you can imagine what the number is now. And of course, having sat through our last budget meeting where everybody's saying how crucial housing is for retaining personnel, we know that firsthand in Woodstock.
So that also answers Linda's question about where the data can be found. 2018 Woodstock Housing Survey and Keys to the Valley study. There we go. The next question we had was, these are from Wendy. Can we achieve the same state goals with fewer changes? So I assume that means reaching the 500, bringing it, and those sorts of things.
State law.
The state,
What I just heard, I think, Mr. Geiger, I think I just heard you say that these are already in effect as of July 1.
so the state laws are the state laws. There's no other alternative to achieve them. They are,
My point is some of the proposed changes, my question slash point, some of the proposed changes in changing things from conditional. or
Okay. Okay.
Or more discretionary from our end.
Okay, so then, okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. So the question is, are the lot setbacks, the conditional use changes, the height changes, are those state or are those best practices?
So my answer is it's a mix. There's
Okay.
some of the stuff at the state, and we started off with that.
Yeah.
The state just says, whether you want to or not, here you go. You got to do this.
So is
A
that?
lot of
I just wanna-
setback specifically are best practices.
Okay, so that's best practice.
Yes. So there's a mix of a lot of the people that we've talked to, a lot of the discussion and debate, planning commission, a lot of public input, that we're presenting this as a lot of the best practices.
Okay.
So there's a mix.
I also want to say in terms of the origination of the setback conversation, Susan Silverberg, who was on the commission in the spring, and I did a character survey. We did a few character surveys in the village where we mapped out what is a setback in the village, what is consistent with what we're calling character, as well as how many properties have secondary units and how many have multiple units on them. And we spent a long time walking around the village when I was very, very pregnant and did not make me go into labor. But that conversation informed a lot of our discussion at the planning commission, because it was a question that came to the planning commission that said, like, what is in keeping? And I think you'll know if you drive around the village that the setbacks vary greatly, which is what we found. And so we found that 5-foot difference where we're changing it is not going to radically shift the character of the town, but it could have an impact when it comes to somebody who needs or wants to build an accessory dwelling unit. And that goes the same with the height. As you come into town, we have what we call gateways in the planning commission, Sunset Farms, and the Terrace, which are like very tall buildings. So the height conversation stemmed a lot from that character survey, as well as a conversation with architects about how to retain the character with the height requirement, but accommodate green initiatives like heat pumps and accessibility measures like elevators while retaining the gabled roof that we all know and love. Not have
Which is taller.
Yeah. And the grade of gabled roof. A lot of conversations about the grade of the gabled roof. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then next question from Wendy was, can you subdivide a lot? So I've got half an acre and I want to parse out 8,000 square feet because now I know I can put 4 units on it.
Yeah, so if the question is, can you subdivide a lot? My answer would be no. Can you subdivide? And we make it slightly easier to subdivide. If you look in the proposal, we actually just took the language what's currently in the town that says, if you subdivide one lot to create just one additional lot. So we're taking one lot to 2 lots within, I forget if it's a 3 or 5 year period, then that just requires an administrative approval. But once you start subdividing more, so the example is if you have 1 acre and you're in a 8,000 square foot requirement, that yes, you could take 8,000 square feet and subdivide that land and someone could come and build on. You could do that again. And you could do, now I'm running into how many times you could do that.
Yeah.
Quick math. Yeah, bingo. And so there's also other things to consider too. Just because you can subdivide, that doesn't mean automatically you can build a house. So the beauty of Vermont and the mountains and the topography doesn't necessarily always mean you can automatically well, I've got 8,000 square feet of land, so I can build however many houses, I can fill up that whole thing. Not very typical. I mean, like I said, we have all these natural resources that we have protections and regulations, not changing. We have a design review district. So far, we're not changing. We have still the setbacks, and we have all these things that play into a factor when you subdivide your land or when you're purchasing land that still goes into effect.
And so if you subdivide more than once, then it is an automatic.
Then it goes, yep, then it goes in front of the.
Which is what it would be today.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, next question is from Bill. Yeah, is there room in the village to do such things?
My answer would be absolutely yes.
Okay.
Now, again, it depends on where, some areas are steeper than others. Some areas have shallow soils, are wetlands in the village. There are reasons why some parts of the village are better than others. That's why we bring up East End in comparison to the, behind like High Street or like Lincoln, where you have steep slopes, shallow soils. But there is possible. And when we think about higher density, we probably think about, where like right behind Zach's place, where you have Lincoln and High Street, you have very small lots. But if you go further down High Street, or you go over in different areas of the village, our overall average is half an acre. So that's pretty large for the most dense, most highly populated and commercial space in the entire municipality.
Okay, and did you all have conversations about public transportation as? Frank?
We do. We have actually a lot that is an issue. We have people that live out of our community, don't have access to proper transportation, and how do you get them to come work here? So we've been talking about micro transportation to have small ways to get people back and forth from other communities.
Then we had another question from Wendy, which was, what's the difference between an ADU versus a one household dwelling?
So it is still subordinate to, it is, that's why that change for the owner occupied.
Yeah.
So it's within that same parcel, that you own the primary unit and then you build an accessory unit.
Okay.
Whereas the difference of it's not attached to anything. A single family or a single household dwelling is not attached to anything. Hopefully did that answer?
Okay. Can we save it for, I want to make sure that we get to the trustees. Okay, is it
Correct. Yeah, in that specific district, if it's 8,000.
So let's move on to the trustees, questions and general discussion. Jeffrey?
Well, no, I was just making a comment which you kind of clarified because both Kareem Hurry and John Spector referred to 500 houses. And it's 500 units. There's no way there's room for 500 houses, in my opinion. But
not today.
No.
No. Yeah.
No. So I just wanted to clarify that we should be talking about, it says homes here, houses.
Your apartment could be. But yes, I
Yeah,
get that. Yeah.
exactly. Apartment can be your home.
Any other?
Does the design review board play into this at all? They're sort of a advisory board for how things look in the town. Is that any bearing what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so funny enough, historically.
No, did I say town? He created the village.
Okay, I got you.
He lives here for 4 years. You think I get it?
Yeah, so design review will still play the same advisory role, as they currently do. We funny, looking at historical records of town many years before zoning of the actual density back then. So we're almost reestablishing a pre-zoning density that existed in the village. So, but where designer advisory committee actually plays a role is they still go through and walk through all the same things as they do now. So if you meet those criteria, you get design review. If you can't meet those criteria, you don't get design review.
Any other questions from trustees? Would you like to have a discussion about, is there more information that you need? Is there a discussion that you'd like to have? Is it?
I'd like to say that I appreciate the work you've done and I'm in agreement with it. And I also don't think it's going to make a very big difference. But if it makes a little difference, that's good. But it's nowhere near going to, these changes provide what we really need, which is 500 units.
Yeah. Can I respond?
Yeah, oh no, please.
Yeah, so
Let me
I think I think Jeffrey, a lot of that is definitely correct. It's kind of that old classic Dr. Seuss, just because you can't do it all doesn't mean we shouldn't do something.
I agree.
And this is one of those where we still have, I mean, I wrote down here, like, we have more work to do, but we're gonna keep working.
Right.
You know, Kevin used one of my favorite lines that I wrote down and he stole it. Zoning does not build houses, you know, contractors, developers build houses. You know, it's imperative that we act now to reduce the burdens. So this is step one of many. Tonight, if you vote on this and approve it, and on the 21st day it becomes law, we haven't provided a single person any more housing, automatic. There's still more work to do. But this makes it a little bit easier for me to have that conversation in my office or someone calling, say, hey, I've got an idea. Is it possible? And I go, oh my gosh, it might be. So that's a little bit of that,
Yeah.
you know, this isn't the end all. But we're
But
working
this,
towards it.
this small step
Yep.
is a good one. It's and then important. I for one would like us to vote on it.
Bill, do you have any questions or comments?
Questions, I'm in favor of it too.
Brenda,
I'm not going to vote tonight.
you're not? Okay, what information do you need?
I think there's a lot of information that needs to get looked into further.
And what is that information? Because if we have questions, I want to give it to them.
I think I would like to actually like go through this whole thing again and just really analyze it. And I definitely don't feel like I'm prepared to make a motion on this tonight.
Do you feel like you have enough information? And if not, what information do you need?
I don't know what I need,
Okay,
so, I think I'd like to take a look at it again.
Okay.
And, I don't know, my thoughts, I know the question came up for about transportation and doing this. I don't always think there's a unilateral reason for things to be able to succeed. And so transportation, maybe other considerations, so multi-pronged approach, maybe, to solving for this. I mean, I think this is wonderful work.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. But I think it has to go hand in hand with some other.
Bill, wouldn't transportation be just another issue that is encompassed in here? Not, it's not certainly important, but these things
This
could
is not
help
supposed to
move us
answer that.
forward.
I
Doesn't answer what.
I get that, but just. I'm, and I know you use these interchangeably, but I don't know that affordable housing necessarily might be attainable in this area. I don't know. I have to really look at this. I struggle with whether it's something that's possible.
Yeah. And
so, yeah.
do you mind if I
Oh,
just
please, go
clarify
ahead.
that?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point that you bring up because what we're proposing tonight is not just to build affordable housing. What we're proposing tonight is to make it easier to build housing. When we talk specifically about what is affordable development, that's just something that the state has said. If you have an affordable development, here are the bonuses that it gets. We're not looking or saying that the only type of, I don't know, still don't know the answer to the question if we'll add any specific affordable housing under this definition. But every unit that we add potentially has an impact on how affordable the housing is. So that's where this helps to, you know, again, it doesn't solve everything, but it makes it easier. It eliminates some of the burden, or at least reduces some of the burden of just building housing at all. Even market rate housing will have an impact.
To John's point earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's also something to be said about, I feel like the word affordable housing gets used a lot, even when we're not talking about affordable housing. The latest buzzword is missing middle, right? So it's the stuff that's not a single family house and it's not, 10 unit apartment. It is something in the middle. And so whether that's 2 or 3 units, you know, that each cost $450,000. $450,000 is not affordable. Like that by the definition of like affordable Windsor County, whatever. That's not affordable.
Not with a $61,000 median income.
No, but it is, but that is more attainable to someone than the $1 million houses that we have. Like that is, that our market is $1 million houses in the village. It just, I mean, it is. And so in order to bring in anything besides that, we have to, you know, and some of these are already lost. So like the 8,000 square foot thing, done. Like we are already
Right.
have to allow that anyway. And so what we're talking about is more of these like setbacks and the way things are being approved, reviewed for things. So I think part of it is we're not talking about affordable housing. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but we're talking about units, which, and we've talked about how do we bring more revenue in? This is revenue. It's growing the grand list. Like the grand list, that's how we get bigger budgets. It's the grand list. And this is a way that we grow the grand list because as you said, you know, what was it? John said, people don't pay taxes, houses do, or homes do. So that grows the grand list. And then I think at the same time, if we also have like infrastructure we need to work on and transportation that we need to work on, the group or the issue that has the attention and the people that are working on it, you don't stop that because we have other things to do. We do it and then we go, okay, this person comes in, wants to build 5 units. We go, hey, that's great that you're building 5 units. By the way, if you're going to do that, you need to upgrade the sewer infrastructure. So you're going to have to run those things. Great. We've just gotten somebody to pay for, you know, moving more things. And then that adds more money to the sewer system, which means they are now enabled to do more things. Like you're bringing in money that gets used in lots of different ways. So those are just some of my thoughts. And I would, with the trustees, just ask if whatever your concerns are, like, let's talk about them, but give them specific things to come back to you with so that the next time if we decide not to vote tonight, we need to give them questions, homework, because it's our job to come here having done our homework. And I know that we all struggle to do it sometimes, but we need to be as respectful of their time and effort as they are of our time and effort. And so let's come in and if we still have questions after this presentation, like stuff doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, like let's get them to clarify that. But if it's just, I haven't had time to read it and I get it, that's fine. If there's a lot to manage, and let's figure out how we can do that better. But whatever your concerns are, like let's get them specific so that they can address them, or Eric can, or we can have
And
conversations.
specific to what they
Yes,
present.
yeah, specific to what is presented.
I think too, there are members of the board who have one more time. I mean, we can always have a deadline of asking.
Yeah, we can do it again.
Or something to get to.
Yeah,
I mean,
I just want to know,
if their concerns are, they want more time to review things, they may just.
Yeah, there's
need
a
few
lot,
days to-
there's a lot of information.
So they may not
there
have
to
the questions
absorb.
they have right now, they may need a few days to.
And I'm not a zoning specialist.
Yeah.
So-
We could ask, for a week from now, 5 days from now, have the questions to me or to Steve, and, if that's the best way to do it, if they want. But I don't want to speak for either one of you, I just want to.
Yeah, how does short-term rental fall into all this?
Completely separate than what's in front of you. Short-term rental is something that we've started looking at planning commission level, but not part of what we're looking at today.
There's nothing in here about short-term rental?
Nothing, I don't even think short-term rentals is in here. Oh, outside of central commercial, it's prohibited in that district. Is proposed.
Over by Easton, right?
No, central commercial.
Central, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
DC.
That's the district.
Well, I'm not just saying that for
Yeah, no,
myself,
yeah.
because I know that there's been discussion about this. And honestly, I'm not prepared to vote on this evening. I really want to look this over a lot further.
Okay. Gabe, so you still feel like you need more time?
Uh,
Got outstanding.
I think I could vote.
We're done with citizen comments right now. Thank you. So, oh yeah, I want to see if there's any other Any other questions?
Okay.
So trustees, we can certainly make a group decision on this. Brenda doesn't feel like she has all the information that she needs to make a vote. So she can, if we choose to vote, she can certainly abstain or vote no. If that's,
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the changes presented.
I second the motion.
okay. So there's a motion to accept the changes as proposed. There's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Me.
Okay, Brenda opposes. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Motion passes. Go change all the language now. Go find us 500 units. Okay. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your patience. The next item on our agenda is citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments? You have a citizen comment? Come on up.
Well, as I said before, my name is Bill McDonald. I live up here on Linden Hill,
Okay.
and been here since 2001, 22 years. I can't believe it. Seems like yesterday. I'm in denial. We have a problem. Two aspects to this problem. Number one is safety, and number two is aesthetics.
Okay.
We have a pool that needs about $10,000 worth of work. So what my wife Kitty and I talked about this. Last year, summer 22, we only used the pool about a dozen times, not even half a dozen times all summer. So this summer we didn't open it up. Still covered with the tarp. Well, it's fallen and the tarp is getting old and it's starting to fray. And that's a consideration. And we didn't miss it at all. So what we would like to do is fill it in. But the fellow who's going to do the work for us said, we're probably liable for a $300 or $400 permit. And I was positively appalled. What we're concerned with is not just the aesthetics of the pool, but we have a fence that doesn't completely surround the pool. It's along the street. You can easily walk around. We have a lot of kids in our neighborhood up there. And if one of those kids was to fall into that pool with water, he or she could drown. With no water, crack their skull on the concrete, and who knows what might happen. So we're concerned about it from a safety point of view as well as an aesthetic one. But given the fact that it's only going to improve the aesthetics and the safety of the neighborhood, we shouldn't be penalized with a $400 permit. My God, we're paying almost $300 a week in property taxes. I just noticed in yesterday's New York Times, they have a little real estate section from time to time. One of the houses featured in it is down in Dorset, only a few miles from Manchester. It's on the market for $650,000. The taxes are $5,600 a year. I'm paying almost $15,000. What is going on in this town? That's not why I'm here, though. But I'm paying a lot of taxes here, and I would just like to respectfully request you folks to waive the fee, given the fact that all this is going to do is improve the safety and the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and that we would like to be free from a $400 penalty, I guess you'd say almost. It's equivalent to it. So that's my request. Can
Okay.
you tell Steve that he can give us a permit without
I can't tell Steve anything.
without a
It's his job.
without a $400
So I think
fee?
what, and trustees, let me know what you think. Before making a decision, I would want to see how much is this going to cost you in total? And then exactly how much is the fee? Because you sort of gave us a range. So that we can actually be looking at numbers. And then if you're requesting the permit fee to be waived.
Yeah, that's all.
To give us, is it a hardship issue, or do you just not want to pay it?
Well, I mean, we're paying a lot of taxes.
As we all are.
Holy mackerel, $300 a week.
Yeah, we're all paying.
Shocked.
I'm not inclined to, I think we're opening up a.
You're not inclined to what?
I agree.
To
I
approve
agree.
a waiver,
You're not
unless, Seaton's question, unless it was some kind of hardship. I mean, because you're paying, because you're paying a lot of taxes, we're all paying a lot of taxes.
What?
We're all paying a lot of taxes.
President.
But we can't set that precedent. I'm not, I don't feel.
I'm not doing anything that improves, that adds to the value of the property.
No,
It might detract from the value of the
I
property.
completely
There's no
understand
point
that.
anymore.
You're gonna have a whole line of people asking for waivers and
Right.
permits.
Yeah.
Bill, did you?
It sets a precedent.
I agree with Gabe.
Bill, you agree with
I
me?
agree with Gabe, yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Do it?
Brenda, you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah.
You don't want to
It's a
consider it?
precedent for everybody.
Jeffrey?
Well, it sets a precedent, I guess. for-
What?
It sets a precedent for everybody, not just for you, Bill.
So I'm gonna have to pay $400.
I don't know how much you have to pay. We have
Well, maybe
nothing
we'll
to
just
do-
leave
we
the
have
pool the
nothing-
way it is then.
We have nothing to do with the.
The hell with it. Let somebody fall in there and let it look ugly.
Well, that's,
let-
if
so
that's
let
your
us-
decision, that's fine.
You're maintaining your property the way you see fit.
What's that?
You're maintaining the property the way you see fit, where you need to.
Well, I'd like to, you know, be responsible and contribute to the aesthetics of the town and the neighborhood. But you people are just telling, you just slap me in the face and saying, go take a long walk on a short pier.
There are 25 other people who would like to have the same exception.
I don't understand what you're saying.
25 other people behind it that want the same
So-
exception.
Yeah.
So I
Go
think,
ahead, Eric.
Who's gonna know?
So-
This doesn't have to.
so
Who's gonna know?
I think you came from the board and
Pardon me?
I think you came from the board with a request. The board right now is not interested in following through with that request. So I think conversation probably should end here.
Are you Eric?
I am.
Yeah. Well, I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed. I thought this would be a perfectly reasonable request, and I've wasted 2 hours.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, though.
Thank you.
Are there any other citizen comments? We'll take Wendy and then we'll take Roger. Wendy, come on up, please.
Thank you, Wendy Marinan. I know the vote has taken place. I want for the record just to add a few more concerns to the zoning moving forward. One is his request just reminded me of a comment I wanted to clarify. And I think recently we increased all of our permitting fees dramatically. Is that right? Didn't we?
Yeah.
Recently, like from 100 to 1,000 type? fees?
It was based on how big the space was.
But it was a large incremental increase.
Only if it was a large square footage. It was about the same, up to 4,000 square feet. And then once you got above 4,000 square feet, I believe that's when the number went up.
So I guess what I was worried about is all the new home builders are gonna have a little sticker shock, will it be a deterrent? But that's just a comment.
Okay.
And then the questions that I had put forward, I'm still not clear on with the ramifications of, we're reducing conditional use committee work by 75%. So we're going from 4 times you were using the various boards to 1. So what is the impact on the committees? The Village Design Review Board, you have different boards for different
One's got government power, right?
permits.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. I just want to make sure that I get everything.
So the ramifications, it's a question, observation, is there's a huge reduction in the need for the boards that are serving.
Okay.
Is that true?
So
You know,
Just
and then,
the Village Development Review Board would have a little less work, but there's still
It still
conditional,
exists,
there's
but
still
they
conditional
still
use
use-
permitting that's.
we've gone from 4 reasons to 1 in the chart.
Yeah.
just-
there's
just pointing that out.
There'd be less
They'll
work,
have.
Yeah.
less work for that. board.
Wow, so,
They'll have
and
more
then-
to consider the
and
things
then
that-
the other ramification that sort of fell through the cracks, my bad, but, is once we've cut the off-street parking in half, we've just done that, then you are gonna have more, need to park on the street, happening naturally from that. That's state driven, that's not discretional, but it's a new problem in
It is.
an already existing problem. I just kind of wanted to highlight.
Yeah, okay.
And
thank you
then,
very much.
oh, like you already knew, I know, but I sort of Sometimes I like to state the obvious. I'm like the emperor's new clothes, you know? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Roger, you also had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for making the decision on the zoning. I think this town needs to diversify its economy. It needs to diversify its population. It needs to find ways to grow responsibly. And this is a very well thought out plan in my book, and it's a very good way forward. And one thing that this town has been very good at, or the government of, is stopping things from happening. And, you know, some of that was deliberate and some of it was just because the structures didn't support doing things more quickly. But I applaud you for making a quick decision on this and then going forward with something that is beginning, and nobody thinks it's going to change the problem overnight or in a decade for that matter. But we have to start somewhere, and we can't nitpick every decision that we make about, well, what about this and what about that? And what about that? What about that? So just, I appreciate that what you've just done. Thank you.
Are there any citizen comments on Zoom? Going once. Any other citizen comments in the room before we move on? Okay. Next item on our agenda, additions and deletions from the posted agenda. Do you
Yes.
have anything, Eric?
Yeah, we want to add an appointment to the Public Water, Aqueduct Water Committee group
Okay.
that is starting. And then also there's a permit.
Is that new business?
Yes, it can be.
Well, I can hear you.
There's a public aqueduct committee being set up by Charlie Kimball,
Okay.
and he's requesting a member from each board be on it. So it'll be an appointment tonight from for a member.
All right, thank you.
And then there's a permit from the Dancing Witches to be part of the Halloween parade permit that was approved last time.
The dancing.
The dancing.
Yes, I have the permit here. I got it. They reached out to us this week. They want to be involved kind of actual parade, and I guess they dress as witches and they dance around
Wait, really?
the Halloween parade for the school.
School parade.
Oh, the school parade. I was like,
Dancing witches.
The school is in favor and is gonna allow them to use their CLI.
Okay.
Also, if we add that to permits.
okay.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so we'll put that under permits. Dancing.
Honestly. Now I'm gonna go to this parade, sure.
Okay, it's gonna be
Just to see the dancing witches.
okay. Okay,
From Gem Radio Theater.
sure. Okay. Okay. Anything else
Uh,
to add or subtract?
I think we can get rid of the executive session.
Okay. Okay, well then let's move on to the manager's report, general and financial.
Yep, so first, the board doesn't already know, Mary Ryrie had to step down from the select board. She made it official, in an email 2 weeks ago, for a personal family decision. I want to thank her publicly for her time on the board and also her time in Woodstock. She's been a member of the government for a very long time. I'm sad to see her step down from the board, but hopefully see her back in the clerk's office sometime soon. Right before this meeting, the select board voted to fill the open spot with Laura Powell, who you talked to a few minutes ago. So she's on the select board going forward. So back to five members as we head into budget season. There's that. I want to thank Steve, the chair. She did a lot of work over the weekends to make sure that the permits are set up for and the COIs for people to sell on the green for nonprofits. It looked very successful from what I saw. So I just want to thank all the work she did and organized in that. So I think it played a very large part in for us good food. So hopefully, and you. I was too late. Again, Subi, I saw you there as well. I waited too long. Third, I signed an agreement with the elementary school for town hall to be a place to shelter in case of emergency. They're going to have, I don't say a test run, but something in coming weeks to practice coming over here if need be, just so the trustees are aware of that as well. Finally, the Woodstock Aqueduct, is still looking at ways to fix the piping over Elm Street. They originally got a quote that was pretty substantial, that they can't afford as is. They were talking to someone this week to look at an alternative option to connect a pipe, for the winter to make sure nothing freezes over. I had a call with them and members from the state, earlier this week about looking for other funding options. We're in the same roadblocks we had before as their private company. We're a municipality, we're trying to work to find ways to make sure they get some extra money to kind of cover these costs. And also then keep the user rate down for Woodstock residents. The state is giving them some reimbursement on work they've already done, and some work going towards the work they may have to do on Elm Street. So they're going to get a couple $100,000 from that will hopefully they can use as well. But as well, we know it's an ongoing issue, and with winter coming, we're all looking for solutions to get the piping underground or off the sidewalk at least. Any questions on the general report? So financial reports, I just want to point out a few things. Jeffrey brought this to my attention, so I did some more research. If you look at under police revenue, parking meter revenue, it shows that we only have 6.49% of page 25, for a total of $4,669.32. The way our accounting works, so that one line item, we have to do a journal entry after everything's done to pull it into NEMRIC. So that $4,000 you see is just the money from July, going off Chief Swanson's calculations. Once the journal entries are made, we'll be closer to 20% of the overall budget than we are now. Still a little bit behind the budget, but much closer than I think where we should be. And then something similar to moving violations. Right now there's $2,174 in there. There are roughly about $7,000 outstanding that the state has sent back to us that we believe are in a missile revenue account. They would just do a transfer from that account into the correct account. So that might just show up there as well. So the police revenue is pretty on par where it should be. It's just some accounting things we have to do based on being short staffed the last few months and this person catching up.
That still doesn't make sense to me though, even if Chief is right and it's 20%, we should be at 25% of the budget. And even that doesn't make sense to me when month after month we hear that the parking meter revenue is up every single month.
So if you look at the credit card permanent parking, that's up at 30%. So that is higher than normal.
Number line are you looking at?
So we're on page 25.
At that part.
Yeah, so parking meter revenue, which is 4062, moving violations is 4065, and then credit card permit is 4069. Yeah. Are there any questions on the financial reports?
Well, hopefully once Dinsmore gets up to speed, these will start becoming more reflective of everything through the previous month.
Yes, they will. Yeah, it's just that we've had it in the office since the fiscal year started.
No, I understand. I mean, that's the goal to get back to that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what they're working on to get reconcile August and September the next few weeks, and then October when it's over.
Trustees, do you have any other questions or comments? Brenda? Okay, well then we'll move to the police chief's report. Joe?
Speaking of theaters, I'll jump right in. So for September, kiosks earned $5,463.75. Meters earned $5,441.75. Park Mobile was $7,227 even, for a grand total of $18,132.50. September of 2022, the grand total was $15,998.74, and then September of 21 was $15,642.95. So good 2 or 3 grands up.
Every month,
And it's been,
in that way.
yeah,
This weekend should blow it all out of the water.
yeah,
So it's at some point, I'd love.
So at
to
some
see
point
how
it
it
should-
reflected.
Yeah.
me too.
Financial- Yeah, okay, great.
So for September, we had 429 calls for service, with 279 of that being traffic stops.
How many for traffic stops? Sorry.
279. So about 9 a day. If you average that out. Over this holiday weekend, we had 42 stops. The majority of those being Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a few, still on Monday.
Majority were for what, chief?
Speeding, a lot of speeding tickets.
Yeah.
We did have one arrest where we assisted Hartford PD with a case where a person had fled the scene and we located them. I have a presentation I'm giving tomorrow at the library for kind of cyber awareness, cyber crimes, fraud stuff. And also tomorrow morning is National Walk to School Day. So unless I have something else come up that's unplanned, I'll be helping the kids cross the street at the green.
What about an 8 o'clock meeting?
Yep, the school starts at 8.
I know, okay.
So hopefully they're walking through at 7:45. If not, hopefully you don't mind me being late to help kids get across the street safely.
The chief is helping us with, looking into some parking issues.
I've got it all timed out to the minute.
Okay, I guess so.
Got my synchronous watch going.
All right.
You record this, so we will play it back.
Let us know for that.
But that's really all I had for today. I didn't have anything else.
Okay, do you, okay, I'll get to you in a second. What did you, this weekend was crazy as it
It
tends
was
to be.
very busy.
What, did you see anything that was different from previous years?
I mean, traffic was just, it always congested, but it was congested to a new level.
Yeah,
I agree.
Wasn't congested beyond what it was in the 90s.
well, some of us were.
Let's remember what it was like in this village in the 90s, when there was, I think, Chief Green mentioned that the cars were backed up at one point to the high school. But I haven't seen that yet.
They were backed up to about close to White Cottage.
It's not quite the high school.
So,
It was crazy, and there was a lot of like crazy parking things going on.
yeah.
What's the, and I know you only have so many officers, but what's the best, like, how can we plan for like next year or Wassail with, more next year than Wassail, but just with the like, people were, there were cars where they shouldn't have been cars and buses.
I staffed additional officers just because I predicted it being busy, so we were out straight. I don't know that there's really anything you can do. They're gonna be parking. People are just gonna park illegally.
And so.
And we've seen that with Wassail weekends.
Yeah.
Time
So
and time
with-
again.
The parking people, they're obviously walking around doing their thing, and then the officers, you had one on at a time, right?
Yeah, but I staffed a little extra so we had some overlap.
Okay, so this weekend they were going
Yeah.
around doing things.
Yeah, making,
Yes,
responding to calls for service and doing traffic stops.
okay, gotcha. Okay. Trustees, did you have any other questions or comments?
No.
No. Okay.
Can I make one general comment?
Yeah.
Chief, do you think maybe in the budget for next year, you could at least allocate extra money for foliage, special events? Or do you think would need to have more?
Yeah, I
staffing?
could do some.
Not saying we'll fund it, but just, an idea
Yeah.
of if people saying we want more officers on the ground or whatever, well, we still have an idea of much more it costs.
Yeah,
I was wondering if it would be better to have a police officer on duty assisting people at a couple of the intersections for.
I don't think that
crossing
would
the
really
street.
make sense.
No.
No. We, in the 90s, when the left turn was allowed on Elm Street,
Right.
we had to direct traffic a lot.
Oh,
That was fixed by
Except for that-
by prohibiting a left turn.
That one bus this weekend.
Yeah, that one bus. But no, I don't think it would be a good use of resources.
No. How about a police officer down by Triborough Park, that intersection right there?
I don't think directing traffic is a good use of resources.
What do you think is a good use of resources for congestion? Because if it's congested, people can't move, and so there's
Right.
not much to do about that. But in terms of people crossing the
I mean,
street
if you're-
or like stopping in the middle of the street to take pictures.
I mean, I think the congestion is a product of having too many cars in too small a space. I don't think there's a man-made solution
Yeah. Okay.
for
And I
that.
think we talked about having committees, like maybe the foliage committee, this would be a thing they brought up to talk about
Gathering
other,
information.
other options other than what we have right now or not.
Okay.
Might be a good use.
Closing down the covered bridge for the weekend, so we're going to worry about.
Have a wedding there for us. Roger, do you have a?
Comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up. I just make sure that the microphone gets you.
I mean, this may be a Mark question, but one of the things that happened this weekend was Bond Street.
Okay.
Had cars all along one side of it. And that street is barely passable at best. And it was very dangerous for pedestrians. So there's only one sign there, and it's on the bank side. That says no parking either side, and it's an old faded sign. So it's obviously not gonna solve the problem, but at least if there, right now you couldn't even give anybody a ticket because there
Right.
was no sign there. So if we could look at that.
Yeah.
That's good.
But one thing we could do is, we don't generally staff when there's meter holidays. But we could, on some of these busier days, staff a meter attendant to walk around and check no parking areas, but
Yeah,
they're still gonna, I mean, we can ticket them, but they'll still be in the way.
yeah. Well, but
I don't anticipate towing.
that person could also be just another set of eyes
Yeah.
to call back to you guys and be like, hey, I noticed that this is, whatever the issue is.
Yep.
Is happening.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And I can, when I'm doing the numbers that Eric asked for, I can include that.
That would be great. Anybody else have any questions?
No, thank you.
No? Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. And on that, just as Roger brought that up, I think I said this to you before, it's the same thing with the sign on River Street next to the cemetery. There's a sign that says, don't park on the sidewalk, but you can't see
Yeah.
it. It's like faded and it's so. Doesn't mean I don't get angry about it, but. Okay. So next item is use of green permit. Is for Bookstock Literary Festival, Bookstock. Come on up.
I'm Dave Whitney, I'm representing Bookstop, right?
Okay.
We put in a request along with our check and our COI for the next Bookstock June this coming year. Our insurance policy runs from January 1st through December 31st.
Okay.
And so the COI that sent in goes through the end of this year. And we don't pay for next year's until January, well, the end of December.
Okay.
And what we're primarily concerned about is reserving the weekend that we asked for, and we certainly submit COI for the coming year when we get it.
Are you making any changes to the use of the green?
No.
So the only changes this year, the porta parties are included. I don't know whether they were last year or not.
Okay. And we just did the same thing this weekend.
Presumably, same next year.
Okay.
It's the same week. The 21st.
And Nikki, can you just confirm we don't have anything else that weekend? I assume we don't, but June 21 through 23?
Yes.
I think there's.
Yeah, that is free right now.
It's free, okay. We'll make sure that's. So same thing that you did last time, and you started to have the conversation with the police chief about traffic and.
Yeah, we'll do all the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think we can, we can say if we approve it, that it would be with the condition that by January 30th or whatever, you give us the CUI. Okay, so, here we go. Any technical questions? Okay, is there any citizen comment on the Bookstock application? Okay, then I make a motion to move into debate on this item. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moving into debate and discussion, does anybody have any questions on the application? No? Concerns? Gabe?
No.
Can't see. You. Everybody
Fine.
good? Okay. In that case, I would make a motion to accept the application for book stock pending that a certificate of insurance is submitted by January 30th, 2024. For the date is June 21st through the 23rd. And this includes two porta potties behind the courthouse that they had last
I presume that's.
year. Okay. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We'll make sure it doesn't rain this year, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a permit request from the Woodstock Firefighters Relief Association. Come on up. It's the guy with the firefighter sweatshirt on. Go figure.
Thought I'd make it pretty obvious tonight. Keith Anderson, representing the Woodstock Firefighters Association. We are looking to get a permit for West Sale Weekend to sell chili by the cup on the green. And one additional request, if possible, is parking the antique 1923 Maxim fire truck on the green next to our tent while selling chili.
Okay.
And all proceeds will be going to Woodstock Firefighter Relief Fund.
Okay, trustees, are there any technical questions on this?
Doesn't Beth usually sell chili? on
Well,
the
let's, yeah, let's, I want to get to her,
green? Okay.
but let's do the technical questions and then,
Where's the truck be parked exactly?
Next to our tent.
Which will be
On the
Hopefully on the
it's on the
green.
dry, okay. I just wonder where on the green.
See, my
And
only,
I don't know if it's actually
my only concern there, Keith, would be,
wait.
whether,
Yeah.
weather dependent.
Weather
whether.
dependent.
Weather
Okay.
dependent.
Oh, that's technical question. I'm sorry.
There was a thing.
Sorry.
And there, and we could get, basically plastic platforms that would go on the grass to protect any of that, so it would disperse the weight. You see a lot of utility trucks, using that type of technology, so it's just,
I think,
that could- that-
people would love to see that.
yeah,
Can I just ask a clarifying point?
yes.
Having the truck there is not necessary. It's an added ask.
It's, yeah,
Okay.
it
So
is an additional
in
request.
theory, the board could vote to have a permit for chili, but not the engine.
That is correct.
Okay, any other technical questions
Does
from the board?
the fire truck, is it in the way of the parade?
No, it would
Was it
be,
on the?
it would be
Oh,
inside.
you're gonna bring it on the green. You're not-
Yeah, if technically possible, weather dependent.
Like they used to do with the Porsches.
Well, I know they did the Porsches, but that's a good fire.
It's not that big.
That big?
No, it isn't
Okay.
that
It's
big.
antique, it's light.
Okay. Any other technical questions from
Bigger than
the
a Porsche.
board?
True.
Okay, in that case, we're gonna move to public comment. Is there a public comment? Beth?
Yeah, I saw this on the agenda, maybe on Saturday. And the chamber has use of the green for the day, that day. And it is, and we so support the fire department, so please, I'm not being, this puts us in a difficult position. There is absolutely no room for a fire truck on the green. Although people will love to see it, and my suggestion as a compromise would be to have the chili, etc., on the library lawn. Because we have the permit for booths on the green. We have the bonfire in the middle of the green. We have the luminaries all over the green, the memory tree being lit. High Horses has a booth. It would be technically very difficult.
And I believe last year when I was looking at the permit, and this is the question I wanted to ask you, Beth, was the permit that you submitted last year didn't have a map of where everything's gonna be. And I know that we had started with a certain amount of vendors and then we knocked it down to, I think, 8 craftspeople and a certain number of food. So I wasn't sure what, because within our ordinances, we are allowed to approve 2 different permits for the green. So that's
Okay.
something that we can do, but certainly it has to do with space and you have to be using 2 different spaces and that sort of thing.
Right.
Would it be possible to fold them into the green? The everything that's happening anyway?
The complete west end, I mean, the only place that it would be.
But like, could they,
Oh.
yeah, but if you have food being served anyway, can they just be with all the other food vendors?
At that, I mean, we are charging a fee for that.
To sell
Food for everybody that is a vendor on the green for Wassail Weekend. There is the chamber loses a lot of money on Wassail, and you know, it's great for the community. It's my favorite time of year, so please, I'm not being negative in any kind of way. But I thought that there were 20, we had permits for 20 vendors. And I did not bring the permit home with me, I'm sorry.
How dare you?
And so that was my suggestion, would be to just be on the library lawn, which is as crowded as the green. Because we were creating an artisan market with vendors. We have alcohol sales, we have the Wassail booth, which takes up quite a bit of space. So everything on the east end of the green from the bonfire east.
Crafts are 8.
It's up to 25 booths.
And 8 of them can be crafts.
It can be crafts.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
And
Okay.
so if you think about it, and we also have to have room for the parade judges and announcement, and that is on the green at the east end.
So what part, is there any part of the green that you're not using?
Yeah, the west.
The far
The
west
very
end?
west end, there's not electricity up there.
Okay.
But what about the very next tent after your tents stop?
That would be past the way past the bonfire.
And again, and that would be again past where there is access to power.
We don't need.
And I'm happy, I think what I
Well, if
would,
they don't need power, Beth, if they don't need power and they're willing to be very west of
Yeah.
where you're set up, what's the problem?
Okay.
I think it's the aesthetic. I would like to talk further about this, quite honestly. You know, I saw it. I'd like to talk maybe with the fire department about what it could look like. Kathy and I discussed it today a bit. I mean, we envisioned having more of a Christmas market as opposed to, you know, the tents on the green that we've had in the past, and more an artisan market. And so I again, I'm not opposed, and I don't know why the library lawn isn't a possibility, because I think there are as many people there, because we have the wagon rides over there. We have the Wren song is at the library on the steps, as is the child's Christmas in Wales is at the library. So I mean, there is a lot of flow through the whole
So
village.
Beth, there have been changes in the library lawns management, and there are not currently processes in place for things to be on the library lawn.
They're not, I'm sorry.
there are not currently processes in place for things to be set up on the library lawn. The library is no longer managing that space. So.
Right, and you're
there's-
managing the space?
There's discussions still have to be had, and we don't, even if we did, we don't have a process yet. That's a discussion that needs to be had.
So-
Okay,
When would you guys need to know if you have a permit or not?
I don't have that date. I mean, ideally, we have to make the chili, right? So beyond that, I can't tell you.
Because Beth
How
mentioned,
good is your chili?
We're gonna have two different types. It's gonna be fantastic. So just to put a couple of points here. One, fire department can be flexible in terms of if the opportunity on the library lawn presents itself for permitting, great. We can make that possible. We can definitely sit down with Beth and have a discussion around
Yeah.
what that looks like for the chamber. And just curiosity or point of clarification, you said the village has the opportunity to issue 2 permits for the green itself. The west end is currently still an option.
Yeah.
And as far as it has been described, what's being offered on the green isn't just holiday arts and crafts. There are food vendors on the green as well. So competition, but
Yeah.
hey, we live in a capitalistic society,
Yeah.
so there you go. We can wear winter hats, like we can be festive, so not a big deal. I don't see what currently precludes us from being on the green under current
Yeah,
conditions.
I think that the fire truck is the one thing that I'm just like, I don't know that.
We don't, that's
Yeah.
not a necessity. If it can happen, awesome.
Okay. The other option is you can do it the next day because there's still gonna be the same amount of people, but there's gonna be less food options. Throwing that out there as an option, not.
There's fewer people.
Correct. So ideally,
I
we
mean, those
would,
people are gonna sleep somewhere, right? They gotta get up and have lunch.
There's fewer people.
Is that-
you know, one thing this town can always use is more food options. So I don't think that's necessarily a concern.
Yeah.
So, but the point still stands. We still have the opportunity to be permitted on the end.
Yes.
We are willing to sit down with Beth and talk
Let's
through
do that.
this and make it very, cordial across. I mean,
Yeah.
we're part of the town, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we just want to be present. We want to be, part
Yes.
of the solution, not a problem.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's, they just want to know that it looks right. I think that's really best.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to them.
and I think the trustees have time in the next trustee meeting.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
November, so we can ask.
We're about to have a lot of meetings with the budget, so we.
Yeah, ask if the mayor chamber and the fire association get together before the next
Yeah.
meeting, come up with the solution there everyone's happy with, and then the trustees
Yeah.
vote on permits.
And so options are you go down to the west end. We have the ability to give you the permit for that, just no truck, or maybe you get closer with them, or maybe you do it the next day, or maybe there's another option that we're not thinking of. But do you guys,
We will first schedule a meeting with Beth.
Okay.
And the Relief Association.
Yeah.
And then anticipate one way or another that there is an option for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
we would like for you to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just
Yeah.
how that
I think
happens.
it's great.
And presumably your certificate of insurance comes under the town because. you
I,
are-
I would defer to
Yes.
the people at this table for that.
Yes.
information.
Because you're the town, so it's.
It's not gonna be really hot chili, so no concern around.
Firefighters.
Right. yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay,
thank
Beth.
you.
Thanks.
So
Okay,
we'll be in
next-
touch.
Sounds good, Beth. Thanks.
So the next item
you.
on our
See you guys.
agenda is the dancing witches.
Yes,
Is there anyone here to address? Is there a dancing witch here?
I don't believe.
There's no dancing witches here.
Let's just let them in.
So
Which-
this
They,
is,
they called the chamber and I suggested they talk with you.
thanks, Beth.
Well, maybe
So,
Get to know what.
These are the dancing witches. They would like to be part of the Halloween parade that we've already given a parade permit to the Woodstock Elementary School. To have their certificate of insurance, their insurance coverage will come under the school. The school has said that they will cover them. So it's just that it's not the school, it's somebody different. It's,
I have a
Well,
comment
as long
about
as the
that.
school
Well,
approves.
the school
yeah,
approves-
I mean, in my mind, it's just an addition to the school.
Well,
So
if they approve it, otherwise you don't know what you're looking at. Could be lewd dancers
On the
and.
school-
and
no, the school
skinny
approved it.
outfits. Well, the school approved.
okay, so they will have a battery operated speaker on wheels. And they will be dancing as they breed. Does anybody have any? Are there any
Those are dressed-
citizen comments about the dancing witches? Any?
I'm all for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Dancing witches on the fire truck. Okay, now we've had that, we can move into debate and discussion. Make a motion to move into debate. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, are there any points of discussion for the dancing witches? Concerns about the dancing witches?
As long as they're dressed properly and they're.
I hope they're dressed in properly.
Well, but I mean, if they're.
The kids, come on, man.
As long as they're making vile gestures.
What? No, no, this is from the school. This is from the school. Yeah, yeah.
The school, they worked with the school.
Yeah.
No more discussion.
Witches and with the children. That's never gone on. Okay.
Can we make a
Make a,
motion?
yes, please make a motion.
I move that we allow the dancing witches to be part of the Woodstock Elementary School parade.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Dancing witches are coming to Woodstock, y'all. Okay, next item on the agenda, old business discussion on the use of remaining ARPA funds. How much money do we have?
About $159,000.
$159,000 left. And the reporting is, we have to have it allocated by the end of 2024?
December 2020
Okay, so we have a year to allocate it.
allocated, then
Okay.
by December 2025 has to be used up.
Okay. So we had a previous survey about such things, that we did. That's been a year since we did that survey, I think.
Look, April. of
April.
last- Yeah.
I don't know what day it is.
So it's April, and then the trustees were gonna vote on using at least someone for paving, but then we did $2,000 from the trust as we used by June 30th. So trustees voted to use that $2,000 on paving, and then the goal was to revisit more paving in July. What happened? Everything got posted. Yeah.
So I think we need to think about it.
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
And I think that we would want to set some aside to continue the paving in the village. But that, it wouldn't necessarily use all that up.
Yeah.
What about the elevator in town hall? Isn't there stuff in town hall like you go to that's needed
Well,
on their list?
There is.
Yeah.
I think town hall falls underneath the town.
yeah.
I mean, the village is a large allocate, but
I want to use it for village infrastructure as much as possible.
I do think we have time, and we'll get to the point where paving is absolutely possible.
Could we get some suggestions from Mark Hunter?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
Well, and that can include
Culverts.
I know we have a list of trees that need maintenance. That's a possibility. That,
Inoculation.
No, that's separate. We have a separate fund for inoculating. them.
no, not for inoculation, but for like tree branches that like could fall down soon and stuff like that.
And some trees that are missing.
So we, so we can take a look
Missing
at that,
trees.
that tree survey. So we'll come up with a list from Mark. Any other ideas that you all have or that the public has, send it to Eric
Okay.
for ARPA funds, and then we'll talk further about it next time.
Yep.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Rotary Mount Tom. Rotary is meeting on Mount Tom. Is that what it is? Rotary is meeting on Mount Tom? That's what that?
It's nothing to do with Rotary meeting.
Oh,
Has to do with.
The star,
just come on up, tell us who you are, tell us what it's all about.
I'm Norm Freitas, and I'm here on behalf of the Woodstock Rotary Club.
Hi, Norm Freitas, nice to meet you.
Just quite a meeting.
You
Service above self. Our star, now and forever.
Sir.
So last summer, Rick Tobiasen and Ryan Clark is the electrician who's actually volunteered his time for the last 10 years to help us. I've been managing the star for 14 years. And he has been integral in keeping that star band-aided together. And Rick Tobiasen has also volunteered as a construction coordinator to help Well, what we did is we went up there to see, because Ryan said we gotta do some work on the star. He was afraid to go up there and change the lights because some of the beams need to be replaced. So we did an evaluation and we really figured out that we probably ought to think about doing a full renovation of the star. So that kind of built to a Rotary project. Rotary has been managing the star since 1960. So it's quite a history. And the star was actually built in 1954. And so it's held up pretty well. It's, they did a little renovation about 25 years ago. But
And changed it to LEDs.
and then, yeah, 4 years ago, we Rotary put together some funds to change it over from regular lighting to LED lighting. And we used to have it on just during the holiday. And that was about a month and a half. It used to cost us about $450 for a month. And we changed it over to LED and it cost us $27.50.
And you went till March.
And then we decided, let's go through daylight savings time when it gets dark and, you know, let's turn that light on. And so we had it and everybody loved it. And we actually kept it on an entire year during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Actually, I think both years.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
So Rick has brought an engineer in and they have designed a full steel structure. So nothing really changes. Star is exactly the same. It just, we have to take down what's there and erect this steel structure. Our, the close estimate that we have, we're really close. We're going to try to raise about $120,000 to replace the star. I've already actually met with Eric. I have met with the actual owners of the property, the management firm that manages the Faulkner Trust and their ownership. And they're all for it. Matter of fact, they even said that if we're light at the end, to make sure you call them because they probably would make a fairly substantial donation. Yeah. And I'm just here just to let you know what we're doing. I'm kind of heading up the committee. We're having a kickoff on 11/5, which is November 5th on Sunday at the Woodstock Inn. It's a 5 to 7 cocktail party. And it's going to be an informational, you know, we're going to talk about how we're going to raise funds and we're going to sell stars. And there's 100 of them.
Light bulbs.
And there's actually maybe 120. Yeah, so that's going to kind of be the concept, and we're looking for corporate sponsorship. And I think our goal is to raise money by March, and to really start the project in late April, early May, so that we kind of avoid the big, you know, we don't want to have any construction when people are hiking up there. And that typically is a slower time up there, and hopefully we can get up there. The parks are going to let us use the access road. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. We hope that you come. We've already got over 50 people signed up. We're going to have 120 people for the cocktail party.
What's the date again, Norm?
It's November 5th, Sunday.
I can send you the invite.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Brenda.
Well, your star will be in. All right.
You'll always wear our star.
Yeah.
My husband will be there.
Yeah, he will be.
Oh, you're going to Costa Rica without him.
You better be. He's on the committee.
Saturday.
Anyway, so that's
Awesome.
what we're doing. And I'll keep you kind of in the loop. Probably won't wait through another meeting like this, but maybe I'll just let Eric give you a little announcement as to what we're doing.
I just hope, you know, whenever I come back into town, I've been away.
I
Oh my
love
gosh.
it. It's like
There is-
welcome home.
There's nothing like
I
it.
just
No.
wish it was on year round.
Well, honestly, we, you know, we're up for that, but this was a big commitment to go daylight savings time.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of got to get everybody used to that.
Yeah,
Even some of the Rotarians didn't want to do it. We couldn't figure out why. And,
like you
and
said,
actually, the full cost, we divided it up, and it was the same cost at $27 a month.
yeah, but like you said, it was on year round for COVID for
Yeah,
Here.
and I thought that was a really cool,
It was-
special
Yeah.
time to do that.
And-
And, you know, it's actually on a lot less if we do it in the summer because we have it on.
It comes on later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be an opportunity.
But it is, I'm glad you, I guess I have to sell tickets too. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be, it's well received already. There isn't anybody I talk to that isn't like, oh.
Who doesn't love it?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you
Yeah.
Thank
for
you.
that. Thank you for sitting through all.
You know, the motto with Rotary is service above self.
That's our motto.
And you know, there's nothing good on TV tonight.
Help it, make sure that she marks this off as like your service project for the week.
Yeah,
That
she'll
way you
still
can-
charge me for
Yeah.
something.
Hey, I heard that.
Beth, I don't know if you picked up my check or not.
I haven't been there yet. I'm coming.
Okay, all right.
We had over 1,000 people today. It was a little busy.
Wow.
God,
Well, thank you.
Good night.
thank you for your patience.
Yeah,
Of course. Wendy,
You're a star, Wendy.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I am going to select team. I don't know, I might have to get the whole agenda.
My mortgage rate, maybe I can put you on.
Yeah. You know what? I ain't working rates today.
Thank you, thank you.
okay, we're gonna keep moving through here. Halloween candy distribution. So we have $750 from the trustees. The select board has allocated $750 as they do every year. $1,500 for candy. Nikki is on top of it more than I am, so she has already ordered all the candy. It's sitting in her office. Don't tell anybody. I don't know why it's not back in the conference room. It's probably because we always ate it ahead of time.
And that door doesn't lock,
Yeah.
my door locks.
But I need my snacks. Joe knows what I'm talking about. Well, she'd be like, Sour Patch Kids, Sour Patch Kids. It's not theft. Anyway. Exactly. Please in him. So the things that have to happen, that happen every year, is that we send out a letter to the people on High Street in Gulf and Maple to let them know that candy is coming. And, one year the police did that. Last year, it just got mailed. Nikki just mailed it out to everyone. With all the conversation this year about community policing, I wondered if maybe, yeah. So we'll get the letters. Nikki can get the letters to you. And then I'd like to, because I've heard in the past from people on those streets, it's better to have the candy earlier than later. So I'd love to get the candy to them by the last week of October. I mean, I guess we could do it the 28th at the latest.
I don't remember what we did for distributing the candy last, you'll come pick it up.
No, Seaton and I did it.
Gabe and I
Yeah.
spent 6 hours organizing candy.
Organizing
and-
candy and delivering
And
candy.
he did not talk to me for a very long time. It's like, oh, it'll be fine.
It's about a 72-hour period. It was.
The year before that, my parents did it, so,
Candy distributed.
Well, some people will let you know up front, right? Didn't we? have
yeah, there were
people?
some people and they, in the letter that we send out, we say, if you don't want any, tell Nikki, and then she
Yeah.
says, don't drop it off here. There's about 70 houses. So the things that have to be done now are sending, so we'll get the letter
Yeah.
to Joe, and then we need the candy parsed out so that there's 70 collections of candy. So we need
70
bags.
collections.
70, we try to get
Wipe
like,
out this whole rim and we'll just 70 bags.
exactly. So we need bags. So I don't know where we get bags.
Well, I got you bags last
You got me
year.
bags last year. Can you get
From
me
me.
70 bags here? Okay, okay. Gabe's gonna see if he can get us 70 bags. They were nice bags. So we need to separate that out and then dropping them off. And so that usually requires somebody two people, two or three people with a car where you take it, run it, drive the car. I have done this for the past 2 years. I would love to not do it alone or have
If
somebody
you
else.
did it on a Sunday, I would be delighted to help.
Okay. Brenda's gonna
Was it,
help me.
didn't we do it on a Sunday last time?
I think we
I think we did.
Yeah, if you do it on a Sunday, 7 o'clock, Sunday morning.
Okay. Do you want to do it on the 20th?
I can't believe she said that.
That's fine. Do you want to do it on the 22nd or the 29th? I mean, gone. Do you want to just get back to me? You want to look at your calendar and then get back to
29.
me? Okay.
Don't you think the 29th?
He wrote to this all. Just kidding.
You can drive the car, I'll drive it for the candy.
Yeah, that's what I just said. There's gonna be a letter. They're gonna drop it off. And so then we'll have the bags of candy and then we have another letter that we attach to it that says, this is your candy. If you don't want it, just give it to your neighbor. Because there's some people that are like, I don't want it. And then Nikki, can you also pull up the list of all the homes that you had last year?
Yeah, I can get that for you.
Thank you. Well, that
Ugh.
needs to go to Joe and then to us.
All right,
Okay, done.
witching
Thank you,
hour's
Brenda.
coming. The witching hour is coming.
The dancing witching hour.
Good.
Town police coverage contract.
So the current contract between the village and the town versus expires in June 2024. Because it's a substantial fee that comes out of the budget of the town and goes into the budget of the village, I felt it was important for town and village to be together sooner rather than later to have a conversation about what happens next with the contracts. So when we're doing budgeting, we know actually how much money has to be raised, transferred, all that stuff. Suggestion I had from the select board was if the chair and vice chair both boards want to get together and have a conversation at first and then have a second conversation with the chief. That's the process they recommended, but obviously the trustees can,
And we can gather input from the rest of the trustees, obviously.
as yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm sorry, trustees, are you okay with Jeffrey and I sitting in there? You trust us? Okay, that's good with you, chief, with you. Okay, cool. Then the next item on the agenda is appointment to the Aqueduct Committee.
Go with that. Yeah, so,
Thank you, Joe.
thanks, Chief.
Good night, Joe.
Yeah,
In order to kind of keep the conversation going and gather more information about whether, what the future of the Woodstock Aqueduct Company, Charlie Kimball, our local resident, wants our committee to kind of be the point person to kind of look into things, meet with groups, maybe the Harvard Business School that's working with us. Anyone who offers suggestions, kind of sit down, get their ideas looking forward. To make sure the boards were represented and had input on what's going on. He's requesting that a member from each board be designated to kind of be that board representative on the committee. The select board chose earlier today to appoint Kurt Cole. And so the hope is trustees of someone who's interested in helping out on that. It'll be run publicly, so we run by Charlie, not through either one.
Who is so interested to be on that Aqueduct board committee?
If no one wants to be, the trustees can agree to not have representation on the board. So
Do you know when they're meeting?
So once they get the board together, they're gonna start meeting. I don't know how structured it's gonna be. It could be weekly, monthly, as things come up.
I mean, nighttime, morning, daytime.
Yeah, so it's not just frequency, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I have to get that answer from Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, without knowing that, I can't consider it.
So I think we need more information for anybody.
Okay.
And is it for? 2
And
months? Is
I-
it for 6
and
months?
I
Well, it's probably gonna be.
need information.
Until they,
So
That's
this
like
is
it's done.
the future, yeah, of what happens.
till
I think you'll probably tell
till it gets a solution, whether it's sold or whether.
the solution or until the
Or-
committee does its worth, gets a point where.
Conversation also about what's you know, what's being done to address the current issues, or is that a whole separate?
No, I mean, Charlie has been involved with the, trying to figure out what's happening in the current situation as well. So I think it's a way to make sure there's someone working on this constantly instead of just as it comes in front of the boards as it does.
Okay, so we'll get some more information from Charlie. And then we can make decisions from there. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board? Crickets, okay. In that case, minutes, Jeffrey?
Oh, wait a minute, what's this say about executive session?
Oh, no, we crossed that out.
Oh, okay. Minutes, yeah. So, you know, Nikki, are you still with us, Nikki?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, so I don't know if you were targeting anybody. But September 6th, the minute, you misspelled one of the trustees' names,
Oh, no.
a grievous error. Can't imagine who you would have done that to. Oh, there it is, Jeffrey Kahn. He did it on purpose.
You did.
Yeah,
So,
secret. Can't
Amazingly, your spell check machine doesn't work with people's names necessarily, I guess. So that's the only correction I could find. You did an A+ job once again, except for that horrible mistake.
I'll fix that.
Jeffrey.
G,
Jeffrey, not ERY.
I with a heart over it. Okay, that would make a motion to approve the minutes from 8/31/23 and 9/6/23. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, any opposed? Oh, and then, sorry, I'm going to amend my motion. And from 9/12/23 and 9/29/23, sorry.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Deal with it. Thank you all.
Yeah, time to go to bed.
Thank you, guys.